Hey guys, welcome to Mr. Smith's Kitchen. Yeah, I'm fine. Just deep breath. I'm Brian, Mr. Smith Kitchen. That was my wife and Chris talking to me about. She wanted to know if I was okay. Deep breath. All that. And in case you're concerned, I'm fine. And welcome. If you're new to my channel, great introduction. And but I'm glad you stopped by. Hope you get something out of my channel or this video. And check out some of my other stuff. We do all kinds of things here. Just all kinds of things. I'm documenting me and my family on occasion when they want to. If you're returning, thank you. Means I'm doing something right, and you find it worthwhile to take a little time out of your day to hang out with me. That makes me joy beyond belief. And this shirt is just making me nuts, but it's okay. Anyhow, today thought we'd bake a cake. We're doing a bundt cake, a old-fashioned caramel bundt cake. Friend of Chris's, Stacy, asked if I would make one, and that way she could see how to make it herself. And I think that's an awesome idea. I always do requests. Like I said in Tuesday's video, it's kind of like a DJ, although I play all requests. As long as it's possible. If I can get the ingredients for it, boom, we're there. I'm always down to try something new. Now, I've made bundt cakes before, but I've never made a brown sugar bundt cake, and I've never made caramel icing. So this particular recipe, never made it. I got the recipe off of a YouTube channel called Aunt Bees. She seems like an amazing person. Haven't watched a whole lot of her videos, just happened to find her when I was looking up cake recipes. And she seemed pretty knowledgeable of what she was doing, and that's what I look for. The recipe is pretty straightforward. It's like any other cake that we make. It's got flour, eggs, butter, made with love. Same kind of steps that you would use to make, say, a pound cake or, banana bread, things like that, or just a regular cake. That is my oven talking to me. So the first things we want to do is, before I forget, because I will forget if I don't say it now, don't forget to subscribe. Subscribe notification button is right below me. There is a bell right next to that. It's notifications if you're so inclined to want to know when my videos come out, which are usually Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. But that varies. We're a family. Things go on. Things happen. I don't always get to stick to my regiment. Hit it. It'll let you know when my videos come out. Thumbs up, thumbs down are always appreciated and welcome, but not necessary. And comments, love comments. Try to respond to all of them. In fact, so far I haven't missed one, I don't think. We can have a little conversation if you've got questions, something you want me to make. Great. Always like to know what you think of the recipes. If you try one, let me know. And I think that's it. With the comments, just keep them respectful. Even if you don't like it, think before you type. We're a community of good neighbors and all age groups, and we try to keep it that way. So that being said, let me get the camera turned down to where we are at the counter, all 18 inches by 2 foot of it, and we'll go over what you're going to need to make this as far as the tools go, and we'll start making it. I'll give you ingredients in cups, tablespoons, also in grams, and then that way you have a good, precise recipe. So let me get moved, and we'll start. Okay, so as far as tools you will need, you will at least need 2 bowls. If you are using a hand mixer, because you will need a mixer, you will need 2 bowls. If you're using a stand mixer, just your stand mixer and a paddle attachment. You will need a scale. Scales are so important, especially with baking, and they're inexpensive. You can get a decent, reasonable scale for about 20 bucks. This one was a little less than 20 bucks. I've had it for years, and it has served me very well. You will need a bundt pan, and I'll explain what's in it here in a second. And you will probably need a sifter of some sort, whether it would just be a screen mesh, this thing here. And or I really, at the moment, my mind is just not wanting to tell me what that is. And or an actual sifter, which I have right here. And even those aren't necessary, but if you can get that flour broke up fine, you know, it'll give you a better result. And then, you know, a good spatula, you know, is always good, or a spatula, silicone spatula, whatever. We've had this one for probably 15 years. It's a Christmas, you know, it says all hearts come home for Christmas, and it has served me well. I have two others that I use pretty regular, but that one I use the most. And then the last thing you will need is a whisk of some sort, so that way we can whisk the dry ingredients together when we do those. Now, first things you want to do before you start putting anything together, you want to go ahead and turn your oven on, get it set at 375 degrees, or 325 degrees, I am so sorry, which is I think 170 degrees Celsius. And that way we got it preheating and ready to go. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your bundt pan, you're going to put butter in it, you know, or a shortening of some sort, and you're just going to smear it all around all the parts, and then you're going to take some flour and coat it with flour. You want to do that to ensure, because even though this is a non-stick pan, I want to ensure that bundt cake doesn't stick, because in these pans, these particular pans here, there's no way to take it out if it doesn't fall out. So we've got that done already. We've got our bundt pan together. We've got our oven set at 325 degrees. I am going to put this out in the dining room, because our kitchen, I mean, if you are new to my channel, and I know if you're not new to my channel, you hear me say this all the time, this is pretty much my whole kitchen. Behind you is the back door and a window, and about another 18 inches of counter space. It's got a coffee maker and all my lighting on it. So, first thing we got to do after we get our bundt pan buttered and floured, we got our oven turned on. If you don't want to use butter, you can use like a Crisco or a shortening or whatever. I just recommend, so for ease of getting it out, that you butter and flour, even if it's non-stick. Get our scale out of the way. First thing we're going to do is we're going to put our dry ingredients together. Now, in this bowl, I've already started sifting to save time. You have 3 cups, which is 360 grams of just all-purpose flour, just plain old white flour. And to that, we're going to add a half a teaspoon, 2 grams of salt. Might I recommend, we use kosher salt. Now, if you buy just regular kosher salt that's coarse, grind it up. Take a back of a spoon and smash it, or if you've got a mortise and pestle, use it, and you want to get it as fine as possible. If not, somebody that gets a piece is going to inevitably say, oh, I taste salt. Happened to me a lot before I just got wise and started crushing up until I got rid of the coarse salt, and then I moved on to a finer kosher salt. The other thing you're going to need is 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of baking powder. All right, that's a leavener. That's going to help give it lift. Now, this is a dense cake. You know, it's got a nice density to it, which is good. I mean, it's essentially a pound cake. And the origins of a pound cake came from each ingredient weighed, each ingredient together made the cake weigh a pound. And of course, it's varied since then. So we're going to go ahead and get this sifted in here really quick. And this is a strainer. It's a fine mesh strainer. I don't know why I couldn't remember that earlier, but I couldn't. But now I did. So we're good. All right. And my salt didn't make it through, so we'll go ahead and pour that in there. And just to make sure we got all of that incorporated real well, we'll take our our whisk, and we'll whisk this up real good. Make sure we got it all incorporated real well. Then we're just going to set this aside, because we don't need it yet. Yeah, and it's okay. We'll just set it aside. All right, so now we're going to do our wet ingredients. All right, I mean, this is really a very easy cake to make. Like I said, so the first thing I'm going to do is plug my mixer in, my stand mixer in. I don't plug anything in until I absolutely go to use it. We have little hands that live in our house with Abby, our youngest, and we don't want her to come by and accidentally turn this on, or me accidentally hit it and turn it on beforehand. It could cause a world of issues. She could get hurt, I could get hurt. If there's dry goods in here, it could blow up everywhere, and then we look like something out of a comedy skit. So we don't want to do that. I am using my paddle attachment for this recipe. And the first thing we're going to need is 1 cup or 226 grams of butter. That's 2 sticks of butter. And then I have a half a cup here of, which is 113 grams, of butter flavored Crisco. All right. Now this is where it gets different for me. I've never used Crisco in a cake recipe before, but the cake I saw made looked just amazing. So we're going to follow the recipe. And we're going to put those in, and what we're going to do is we're going to cream these. We're going to turn them from sticks to a nice fine cream. And so let's go ahead and get this on, about medium, 4 on the KitchenAid mixer, and let that run for a second. All right, we got that creamed. No big deal. Took all of like 30 seconds. Now you want your butter at room temperature. I don't know if I just said that. And of course your Crisco or shortening, whatever shortening you use, I would recommend using a butter flavored though, because you want that rich flavor in it. But we're going to scrape the sides of our bowl and make sure we're all good and creamed. Mixers, no matter what mixer you have, and even hand mixers can be this way, just not in the same spot. Excuse me. Have dead spots in them where they don't really mix very well. And in stand mixers, it's in the center, where this point meets down at the bottom. And it's just a little spot, but that little spot can make all the difference in the world. So the next thing we're going to need is just a ton of sugar. All right. In this bowl, I have 400 grams or 2 cups of packed sugar, brown sugar, light brown sugar. I suppose you could use dark brown sugar, but the recipe called for light brown sugar, so that's what we're using. And then I have 1 cup or 200 grams of just regular plain granulated white sugar. So what we're going to do now, we're going to put this in, just like such. Get it all in there. Woo! That way it can make friends with the butter. And we're going to stir it. We're going to mix it up until it's incorporated, until it looks smooth. There's not any, clumps of brown sugar in it or anything like that. Now, if you don't firmly pack your brown sugar, and if you don't know what packing is, it means you put it in the cup and you pack it down, and then you'll probably have to put more on the cup. Brown sugar is really soft, so it doesn't just come down on itself like, say, regular sugar would, or things like that. So you want to pack it down in there to make sure you get the right amount. But if you use a scale, you won't have to worry about it. There is a version called lightly packed sugar, which is 185 grams a cup or 270 grams for 2 cups. But we ran, the original recipe didn't say either way, so I ran with 390 cups or grams of light brown sugar. Almost 400 for heavy packed, not a little more than light packed. So we're going to turn this on. We're going to get it running. You don't want to blow it out and run it on high, but we want to get it nice and incorporated. And then after that, we can move on to the next things. All right. So we got it nice and incorporated, creamed up, ready to go. And now while we was mixing, I also I stopped and I scraped the sides down once, and we're going to scrape it down again. But that's kind of what you're looking for right there. It's still grainy because your sugar hasn't dissolved, but it's got a nice cream look to it. Almost like a granulated peanut butter, if that makes any sense at all. It made sense to me. That's why I said it. But you don't want to so much mix. You don't have to so much mix on like a high speed with this cake, because like I said, it is essentially a pound cake. A brown sugar pound cake, and pound cakes are traditionally dense. So you don't want to incorporate a lot of air into it, because that when you add air into it, that's what makes it lighter and fluffier. So you your baking soda that we are putting in here, or your baking powder that we put in here in our dry goods are going to help give it lift, but this is heavy. So you want to have, that will help you with your lift, so you don't have to worry about incorporating air into it. Yeah, we want a nice good texture that's dense but moist and chewy. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we're going to put in our vanilla, which is 2 teaspoons or 8 grams of vanilla. And then we're going to incorporate 5 large eggs, whole eggs. Okay? So, but we're going to put them in one at a time. So I'll go ahead, I'll drop one in there. Maybe if I can get the yolk to go without putting all the eggs in. Boop, right like that. And then I'll just turn it on and we'll mix it until we get until we can't see any yellow. Kind of like we did with the cheesecake the other day. And then we'll put another egg in. Let it go. And then we'll do a third. Nope. Now your eggs, you also want at room temperature. I don't think I said that just now, but we're going to want that at room temperature. You know, dairy, milk, butter, eggs, heavy cream, anything you use that comes from the farm, so to speak, you want it to be at room temperature unless it's otherwise noted. Like when you make whipped cream topping, you want that to be cold. You know, your cream to be cold then, but for the most part, when you bake, you want your stuff at room temperature. And, okay, we're good there. And it's okay to leave it set out for a minute. A lot of professional bakers will take their stuff out the night before they leave their kitchens, and that way it is completely room temper the next morning and easy to work with. Today, I get up early, like 4:30, 5 o'clock most days. And when I got up first thing this morning, I sat my butter out, I sat my eggs out, that way they were room temperature. I also sat out some heavy whipping cream, but I didn't set out the buttermilk, and I'll tell you why. We're going to work with those next. All right, so all we have left to do is essentially incorporate our dry goods with our buttermilk and our heavy cream. So let me go get our dry goods. Got the dry goods. So we will need those. We will need a half a cup of heavy whipping cream. And we will need a half a cup of buttermilk. A half a cup of buttermilk. Now, the reason why I didn't have to set my buttermilk out was, well, at least for very long, I use a powdered buttermilk, which I highly recommend using if you don't bake a lot or use a lot of buttermilk. A lot of times buttermilk is expensive, and you can buy a quart, use a half a cup of it, and then it'll sit in your fridge and go bad. Now you can freeze it, but I think it loses something when you freeze it personally. So we just buy the powdered. The powdered is good for years sitting on a shelf, and then once you open it, it's good for months in your fridge versus just a few weeks. So anyhow, that's my spiel on how to do buttermilk. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a third of the dry goods in. Let me grab something. Remember, we got 3 cups of flour in there, so I'll just grab a 1 cup measuring cup. We're going to take a cup of our flour. We're going to put it in here, and we're going to alternate. So we're going to do a cup of the dry, put it in, and then we'll put in our heavy cream. Now, when you start this up with flour in it, start it on low. If you're using a hand mixer, number 1 on your hand mixer. If you don't, you will end up with a face full of flour. And that's funny to everybody but you, and especially if you're the one that has to clean it up. So we've got that in there. Now I'm going to pour my half a cup of buttermilk in, and you'll want to do it slow so it doesn't do what it just did and splash all over the place. And as I learned something new yesterday when I was watching it. When I do a recipe, so like when we do anything we make on Thursdays, you know, well, even on Wednesdays when we cook dinner, I do a lot of research, look at a lot of different recipes to, now we're going to stop and scrape our sides. But I look at a lot of different recipes to see what I think, would be the best one to use, or, what are the common denominators. Because I probably looked at 15 different recipes for this. And I saw people who literally just dumped all their wet ingredients in at once and mixed it up because they just didn't have time to do it essentially right. Now, I mean, their cakes turned out, there were a couple people like that, and their cakes turned out, they looked good, but how did they taste? And ingredients adjust what they use. Some people use buttermilk, some people didn't. So I do a lot of looking before we do. So now we're going to add in our second cup, and we'll mix this in. Then we're going to add in our half a cup of buttermilk. Once again, we'll do it kind of slow. That way, we don't splatter it all over ourselves. I mean, I could just turn off the mixer and do it that way, but what fun would that be? This way you're getting, if you have your mixer on, you're getting that little bit in there, and as it does, it gets mixed in. You don't have to mix as long. Which is kind of nice. So then we'll stop, lift, scrape. Scraping is so important. You wouldn't think that would be a thing, or maybe you would get like, oh, that just seems really natural. I never thought about it when I first started baking. Not that I've been baking a long time. I've been cooking much longer than I've been baking. But I have found, much like cooking, or anything else for that matter, because I find this to be true. If you're new, we do a lot of canning or home preserving of our foods. Once you learn the rules, then you can kind of and understand what things do. All right, there's rules to everything. That's why I like math, because it's based upon rules. Then you can start to play a little. Once you know that, like I learned, and I'll say this real quick. I learned, like with whipping cream, for every cup of heavy cream you use, you put in a quarter cup. You need a quarter cup of cream of tartar as a stabilizer. And that's just one of a bazillion rules, and I've not nearly learned all of them, that you can utilize to help play. Baking should be fun. It should be joyful. You shouldn't rush through it. Actually, you know what? I don't know why I'm even bothering with the measuring cup. So we'll put our last third in there of our dry goods, of our flour, which would be the last cup. And then we'll get this mixed. And I'm going to let this one mix for just a little bit longer that way, and I'm going to scrape it down. But that way, I know we've got everything mixed up. All right. I went ahead and I gave it a scrape about halfway through. And then, which you didn't see. Oh, that tastes so fantastic and delicious. And then we'll go ahead and get this off, because all we got left to do is put it in the bundt cake pan. Now, I don't think I know I did not mention the bundt cake pan. You want a larger bundt cake pan, one with about 14, 15 cup capacity, because they make them in like 5 different sizes, ranging from itty bitty little to the size we're using. I'm sure they make them bigger too, but I have yet to see that. But the standard can buy anywhere is the 14, 15 cup capacity, which is what you want. You want a large bundt pan. We'll get that. Set that to the side, maybe. I don't drop it first. Then I'm going to grab my offset spatula. I'll need it eventually anyhow. Scrape off what I can. when we first moved into this house a couple months ago and was able to start baking again and cooking, I really struggled with the size of this kitchen. It took a minute for me and Chris to figure out how to work in a super tiny kitchen. We've never done it before. The last two places we lived had good sized kitchens in them. All right, so let me get this mixer out of the way and I'll bring the mug pan back in. We're gonna get this poured in here, and we want to make it, put it in as evenly as possible. This is a thick batter. Oop. I will say one thing that's come in handy in this kitchen is this oven cover, and I still have to make one for the sink. But with the oven cover and the sink, and I put a sink cover on here, we'll have a 8-foot countertop, which will be nice. I mean, granted, I won't be able to do the dishes as I go with a cover on it, but you have to learn to adapt and improvise. Because the last thing you ever want to say, and this holds true to anything, is I can't do it because if you put your mind to something, anything is possible and everything is adaptable. I promise. All right. You can do anything you put your mind to it. I used to hear people say that all the time. Kind of found it annoying, really, because I didn't understand the truth behind it. Now I know. I mean, it's true. There is a way to do anything if you really want to do it. All right, so we got that. Take our offset spatula here. You want to make sure your batter is even. If you don't, your cake won't be anywhere near even. Your cake will bake because it's thick. It will literally bake how you leave it in the pan. So, I mean, as you saw, it was whopper jawed, uneven, had all kinds of peaks and valleys and hills and stuff like that. And I mean, if I was going for a unique, artsy look, that would have been fantastic. We'd have been there. You just stuck it in the oven and gone. But we don't. We want a, fairly flat base and all that good stuff. It's going to sit on it, so we don't want a leaning tower of caramel cake. All right. So there is that. Good there, good there. All right, so the last thing we gotta do before we put it in the oven, just kind of tap it on the counter a little bit. That way if there's any air that's in it, it can work its way out. And that way you don't have weirdness going on. So, what do we do next? Let's talk about that for a second, because here's the part that takes a minute. We're going to put it in the oven. We have our oven set at 325 degrees. So we're going to set it on the center rack, in the center of the oven. I know I always have a rack that sits in the center of the oven. You may not, but if you don't, put it in the center. And we're going to let this bake for 50 to 60 minutes, all right? 50 minutes to an hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my timer for 50 minutes to start. At 25 minutes, I'm going to open up the oven, reach in, and I'm going to take this pan and I'm going to turn it 180 degrees. That way, I know that it bakes evenly. Ovens, especially as they get older, will have a tendency to have hot spots and start to bake a little uneven. It's just the nature of ovens. So, to help with that, you just turn your pan, and then that way, say it heats a little heavier on the right than it does the left. Now you'll get that balance. After 50 minutes is up, I am going to take a toothpick and I'm going to stick it in the center of it, right there, okay? And that way I can check. If I pull the toothpick out, just like any other cake, and it has little to no crumb on it, I know we're in good shape and we're done. If If it had, you're just looking for something that doesn't have actual batter on it. Another way to test it, say you're like, oh, dude, I want to stick a toothpick in my cake, which, okay. If you touch it, it should be spongy. It should bounce back. You know, if it feels like there's liquid underneath there, leave it alone and keep going. And then you want to go just 5-minute intervals, you know, after you hit maybe that hour. I mean, you'll know, and the more you practice, the more you'll be better at it. Toothpick test, though, is pretty solid. So let me get this in the oven, and when we get back, we'll get it out of the oven. We'll talk about how to cool it, and we'll make some caramel topping. All right, I'll turn it off. Turn the oven off. Actually, let's not turn the oven off yet, just in case. Although I'm pretty sure it's done, but we'll kick it back on. Sing a song. Yeah, best song ever. If you don't own an elf glove or something similar to this, get one. I wish I had two. They were out of stock, so we were only able to get one. Chris got it for me for Christmas. But amazing. So what we're gonna do, we'll go ahead and pull this out of the oven, like so, and then we'll check it. Shut the door, that way we don't lose all that heat. And I'm out of toothpicks, so we're gonna use a small skewer, and we're just gonna put it down here in the center, pull it out, and I'm going to say that we are not quite there yet. So we're going to give it another 2-3 minutes, and we'll check it then. Okay, but I wanted you to see what to look for, and now we know that's not quite done yet. So when I come back, we'll check it again for doneness. All right, guys. So I let it bake for about an additional 8 minutes, and I want to show you this because you're like, oh, it's still not done. But see how it's just got a little bit of crumb on it? Perfect. That's what we're looking for. It doesn't have any batter on it, just a little bit of crumb. Because what happens is, as it sits here, I mean, when you pull it out of the oven, it's still at 325 degrees. Yeah, I mean, that's just fact of life. I want to show it to you up close. So, as it sits there, it's still baking, right? It's doing what's called residual baking, but right there is our cake, you know, at least the top of it. So with residual baking, it's cooling down slowly. You know, it's still, like right now, this is just, I'm about to start sweating. It's so hot coming up on my face. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it, we're going to put it on this rack, and we're going to let it cool for about 10 minutes, okay? After that 10 minutes or so is up, which will give it time to, you know, contract a little bit and loosen up. Plus we have that flour and butter on there, so it should, fingers crossed, come out easy. And then after we get that part of it done, we'll move on to making the caramel sauce. All right, so I'll see you here in just like 1 millisecond, which will be about 10 minutes for me. All right, I'll be right back. All right, so we let that sit for about 10 minutes, maybe a little longer. And now we're gonna see if it'll come out of its house. I'm gonna take a spatula. Let me bring it down a little bit so you can see what's going on. As soon as we get this out to let it cool completely, we're gonna start making the caramel. Let me go get some things to hold it with. I guess I'm not horribly prepared, but I never claimed to be a professional TV, YouTube personality type gig. Now, the downside to using a bundt pan that's, you know, decorative is you don't have a whole lot of room for error when it comes to, you know, getting it out. There's not a whole lot of play. Now, I do have a bundt pan that's not decorative, that the bottom actually slides out, and I use it for some things, but not many. So we're going to go ahead and flip this over onto the rack. Now, I did spray the rack, just so that way it doesn't stick at all or anything like that. And I'm going to say it's going to come out because it just fell right out, which is awesome. All right, that's what we're looking for right there. Get the little bit of crusty out of the edge there. That actually turned out quite beautiful. There is our bundt cake. Looking good, if I do say so myself. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this out on the dining room table to cool completely, and I'm going to move the camera, and then we'll start making our caramel. All right, give me just 1 second. Okay, cake is cooling. Camera is moved. We're at the stove, and I've got a cast iron saucepan that is got an enamel coating on it, which most saucepans are. And when you're baking, if you're doing stuff like this, you should use an enameled one. And I've already got my stovetop turned on. I've got it turned on low. All right. Well, it'd be about number 3. You don't want it. We're not looking to boil anything. When making caramel, I've never made caramel, but in what research I've done on making caramel, which has been quite a bit, and I talked to a pretty good authority, my wife, that you don't want it to boil. You know, we're not looking to boil it. We're just looking to heat it up and combine it. I am sure with it being a candy, there is a specific temperature, but I never actually saw a temperature for caramel. But I do know you don't want it to boil. It will bubble as it thickens. Okay? So, first thing I put in here was a 14-ounce can of condensed milk, sweetened milk. Okay? Make sure it's sweetened. They make an unsweetened one. I didn't know this till the other day when I was going to buy more sweetened milk. And their condensed sweetened milk, I use it to make my coffee creamer with. And lo and behold, they had some. The other ingredient, there's only 4 ingredients to this caramel. All right, this caramel sauce. The other ingredient we need right now is 1 cup, 200 grams. And that was a 14-ounce can of condensed sweetened milk. 200 grams, 1 cup of brown sugar. Okay, I'm just going to pour that in there. Now that we've got that in there, we want to stir. Okay? And you're not really going to, you don't have to sit here and stir it vigorously, like with a whisk or anything like that. But what we're looking to do is get this to combine and the brown sugar to melt. Okay? Now, it will bubble, but it won't boil. So it'll look kind of like lava, when it pops up. Now, I will caution you, just because I know this to be true because I've seen it happen. When you get it to that point where it starts to bubble, and we'll be done with it then, as far as heating it goes, be careful because those bubbles, the splatters, that's going to be really hot and sticky. Sugar is incredibly sticky, especially when it's hot and it's wet, and it can burn you pretty good. So if you are younger and uncertain, if you're one of my younger peoples and you're not sure, get an adult to help you, or you can just simply go buy some caramel sauce from the grocery store and pour that on top. But I think in a way, at least in my thought is, I think it would take away from a learning experience, and it would, I think it would taste better made by you, with love. So we're going to sit here and continually stir this until it looks like caramel. So when we come back after these messages, we'll be right back. Wouldn't that be cool? But we don't have commercials. So when I come back, it will have a caramel look. It'll be smooth in texture, and then we'll move on to the next step because there's only 2 more things to add, and then we're done with the caramel sauce and we can pour it on. Okay, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'm pretty sure you can. See how it's starting to bubble? Not boil, but it's bubbling, releasing those little air pockets there. So once it starts getting that, we're going to let it go for about another 30 seconds to a minute tops. This is a practice in patience. It takes about 5-10 minutes to get it going. I did turn my heat up. I'm on 4, so it'd be on medium on your stovetop. And we've got it, nice and bubbly. And now that we've got it nice and bubbly and you can see it's thickened up, it looks beautiful. If you want a darker caramel, use I'm using light brown sugar in this one, but you could use dark brown sugar. The only difference between the two is the amount of molasses that's in the sugar. That's how you make brown sugar, is molasses. So we've got that going. We're going to go ahead and we're going to turn that off. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. just like so. And we're going to get that in there. And you want to keep stirring. I mean, even if it's just a little bit. If not, I mean, you'll start to burn. And then the next thing we're going to add in there is 2 tablespoons of butter. Okay, and what that's going to do is it's going to give it a nice, rich flavor and let it keep a shine. Butter makes things shiny. You know, as unhealthy as it is for you, it makes things shiny. All right, and I do believe our butter is melted. I had it at room temperature already, so it wouldn't take long. And it was just 2 tablespoons is all that was. So I'm going to go ahead and get this off the heat completely. Get you moved, get the cake on a plate, and we will finish it up. All right? Okay, we are moved. And I will grab the pot. Now the pot's going to be hot, remember that. But all we're going to do is just give it a little drizzle onto the top. Of course, how much you put on it will be completely up to you. Oh, let me grab my towel here so I have a little better control. Now the hard part really is going to be just letting this sit to cool. Because what we're going to do is we're going to let this cool, because as it cools, the caramel should harden. You know, I mean, not get solid as a rock hardened, but it should harden up a little bit. And then, of course, we got that gorgeous pool of caramel down in the bottom. Which is okay by me. All right. That's hot. But it tastes delicious. I do not recommend doing that at home. As it is hot, it will burn you if you are not careful. All right. So, what do we got to do next? I know, eat it, right? Close. So, like I said a second ago, the only thing we got to do now is just let it sit. Let the caramel cool down. Let everything get down to room temperature. The caramel should harden up a little bit. Yeah, that's kind of what sugar does. You know, it helps to combine things and, you know, make things good and solid. So we'll let this sit, I don't know, maybe an hour. And when I come back, we'll try a piece. All right, see you here in a second. We've let it get down to room temperature, which is awesome. It's like really a room temperature. It's been all day. I had other stuff to get done. And so I mean, I got to sit here and cool and get down to where it should be. And now we just got to cut us a piece. I did bake another one. That is what you see right there. That way I got enough friends that, well, my friends at work got to try the cheesecake, and now they're fairly insistent that I bring some of whatever it is I bake to work every week. So now I'm baking too. That way I know there's enough to go around. So we'll go ahead and get us a piece cut. That caramel set up really well. And see how it turned out. I know, right? That would be the oven going off for the tater tots in the oven. So I just stuck them in there right before it hit its proper temperature at 421. Oh no. So we had a little bit of the center come off, stuck down in that sea of caramel.
Yeah.
It is good. See, I'll show you. There's a big wall of caramel there in the center, which is awesome. This is not a healthy cake by any stretch of the imagination, But I can tell you from the looks of it, there is the looks of it, that it's going to taste amazing. I know it looks good. It smelled good while we were baking it, so I can't imagine that it wouldn't taste good. But like I've often said, just lost a piece to the sink. We're only 2/3 of the way there, right? So bring you back up here. I'm just really excited to try this. So we got a piece of the cake, piece of the caramel. Well, it definitely did its job. That is hands down a really good brown sugar pound cake recipe. And that caramel, it's caramel. I think we did all right making this together. Hands down. It is moist. It's got a great texture to it. The flavor is amazing. I'm going to give this 2 thumbs way up. I do still like baking. I've not really had a bad recipe yet. There's been some things I've screwed up along the way. But all in all, not a bad one yet. So, that being said, with my mouth full, I can sit here and eat this, and then we can finish the conversation. But that would be rude. Check this recipe out. It's a doozy. It's easy. It's an easy recipe. If you've never made a cake before in your life, ever, this would be a good from-scratch cake to start with. It wasn't hard. Wasn't complicated. And I know the moistness in this came from the Crisco. I couldn't figure out why the recipe had Crisco in it. Sorry, I bit in my mouth. And now I know why. I got to thinking about it earlier. So in a lot of cakes, you put vegetable oil in them. And what that does is it keeps them moist, or if you have to put them in the fridge, they won't get hard. I think the Crisco is serving that purpose. Because I'm here to tell you, that's probably the moistest cake I've made to date. And I even had to cook it 8 minutes longer, or bake it 8 minutes longer than the recommended time in my oven. So, I would definitely try this. If you've got a sweet tooth, this is the way to go. It'll guarantee to be a crowd pleaser. If you do try this, let me know. Let me know what you think. If you like it, be like, Brian, this was an amazing recipe. Or if you didn't like it, be like, dude, Brian, this is horrible. Why would you even put this out there for people to try? But I don't think you're going to be disappointed by any stretch of the imagination. Try it. Leave me a comment and let me know if you do. Hands down, if there's something you want to see me bake, let me know. I'm always up for a challenge. I like to try baking new things all the time. This has got to be close to my 40th baking video. And every time it's been something different. And almost every time it's been something new. So, I don't mind. Even something that's got a challenge to it. We can walk through it together. It'll be fun. So anyhow, I'm going to go share this cake with the rest of the world. Maybe make a new friend. You never know. So until next week, where I have no clue what we're going to make for dinner. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I'm sure something will happen along the way that'll pique my interest. And I'm not real sure what we're going to bake yet. I have an idea, and it may be another cheesecake. If it is the cheesecake, it's going to be a strawberry cheesecake that is similar to a Good Humor Crunch bar. It seems kind of complex, but I think it'll work. But anyhow, I hope you enjoy your weekend, or in my case, my work week. And until next Tuesday, I love you. I love you very much. And I do mean that. I mean that wholeheartedly. Tell somebody else you love them and love them very much. Make one of these cakes. I guarantee if you give them a slice, you will have a friend for life and lots of good things to talk about. This would go well with a cup of coffee also. So, I'll see you next week. All right? I love you. Talk to you later. Bye.